So if someone's really unpleasant to you and they're disrespectful, it's powerful to use an I statement. Well, before we go any more further, I just want to let you know that I'm going to be really, really careful to offer respect in this conversation, because that's important to me. Now, that implicitly says that standard's in the room now. But without saying you, because you say you're being disrespectful, that triggers defensiveness. And there's something in the brain called the amygdala, and I need to talk about that. The amygdala is part of the primitive brain. It's sort of like the reptile brain. And a reptile doesn't think a lot, doesn't it? They just go around and they go, there's food, better kill it, eat it. Next, reproduce, and that's it. Not complicated. But in a contemporary world, the threat can be just the tone of voice. It can be the fact that they didn't give you enough time to respond, that they interrupted. Very subtle things can trigger the amygdala. And some people have a kind of a higher than normal trigger. They have like a hair trigger on their amygdala. If they've had earlier trauma or unsafeness in their life or some other experience or trauma or something, they have this hyper-arousal. And the amygdala can be triggered very easily, and it triggers defensiveness. And what can happen is that they'll be defensive in the way they listen to the story. The person's giving them feedback, but they're defensive and they stop listening. So if the amygdala gets triggered, this huge, unpleasant kind of arousal state happens, and it doesn't allow you to emotionally process what's going on. And so it interferes with their capacity to really listen to the content of what's being said. You let them blow off steam. Once they've got all the hot air out of their balloon, they'll stop, right? Unless they're like psychotic or they're very, very ill. Sometimes they never stop, but you know. Eventually, and you say, okay, can I respond? The way you're speaking to me is having a really unpleasant effect on me. Is that your intention? It's a simple sort of comment like that. And they'll say, more often than not is, because it sort of say, we're going to work together on this, or you're going to be just sort of like persecuting me. Because if you're persecuting me, I can't really process it all. But if you want to work with me, I need to give you feedback about the process you're using, right? Because the process you're using is kind of interfering with my capacity to hear what you've got to tell me. But if I interrupt them, that actually fuels the amygdala more, right? How dare you interrupt me? And it goes along like this, you know. So like you get this escalation trap. It can escalate. I statements, sort of like, oh, the person's telling me a story about themselves. I'll just listen. I. But once it's a you statement, hang on, they're talking about me. What do they know about me? And so you statements, it can be unhelpful. It can be sort of like, you know, you're this, you're that, you're always this, you're always that, you know. So it can trigger defensive listening. And so in relationship counselling, I teach people to attempt to have what's called non-defensive listening. That's just when you've got to calm yourself. Ideally, the person's giving you feedback in the kindest way possible, and you have to really listen to it to be able to do something with it.